doesn't say a couple. It doesn't say never. It says many afflictions of the righteous. The important part we get to hear is that the Lord delivers us out of them all. He's with us, he promises us deliverance, and he's in our presence. God doesn't promise no problems, but he does promise to be with us. So what should our faithfulness look like, knowing that we are going to face many troubles? Faithfulness means choosing God in the middle of our trouble. Today, we're going to dive into 3 different lives in the Bible. Each person had real struggles, and they also had real faith. First, we're going to look into 1 Kings with the story of Elijah. In the 18th chapter of 1 Kings, Elijah is coming off of a large spiritual win. On one side, there's 450 prophets of Baal, and on the other side is just Elijah. They each have an altar with a bull on it. All day, the prophets of Baal scream to their God, "Please burn down our altar. Prove that you are real." They spend all day doing that. They beg their God, Baal. They cut themselves, they're screaming, nothing. On the other side, Elijah's mocking them. He's saying, maybe your God's asleep. Maybe your God's in the bathroom. On and on. Elijah's just having a good time because he knows his God will deliver. When it's his turn to show that his God is real, he says, let's pour water on the altar. And let's dig a trench and fill that with water too. And then he calls God and says, burn down my altar. Immediately it happens. He proves that his God is real and that Baal is not. He's excited. The Israelites finally recognize Yahweh as God again and not Baal. But Jezebel's not happy with him. Jezebel threatens Elijah's life. We're going to start reading in chapter 19 of 1 Kings. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, also how he had executed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, so let the gods do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And when he saw that, he arose and ran for his life, and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a broom tree, and he prayed that he might die. And he said, it is enough. Now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. Then he lay and slept under a broom tree. Suddenly an angel touched him and said to him, arise and eat. Then he looked, and there by his head was a cake baked on coals, in a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. And the angel of the Lord came back a second time, and said, eat and drink, because the journey is too great for you. So he arose, ate and drank, and went in the strength of the Lord, the strength of the food, 40 days and 40 nights as far as Horeb, the mountain of God. Elijah felt alone. He felt exhausted and afraid, and he ran away. He told God, I'm done. I want to quit. Just take my life. I'm ready to be done. But God was faithful to Elijah. He provided him what he knew he needed, rest and food. Elijah in return was faithful to God and took that time to rest and become stronger so he could serve God's kingdom again. In this story, we learn from Elijah that faithfulness doesn't mean quitting. Sometimes it means resting. Being tired doesn't equal weak faith. It just means we need to take our time to rest, just like Elijah did. Next, I want to look at the life of Gideon in Judges 6. In Judges 6, the Israelites were worshiping Baal, and God was not happy with them. So he handed them over to the Midianites as a punishment. And after 7 years of being controlled by the Midianites, God decided it's time for Israel to be set free. So he sent an angel of the Lord to a man named Gideon and called him to save Israel. Judges 6:13, after the angel has called Gideon. Gideon said to him, O my Lord, if the Lord is with us, then why has all this happened to us? And where are all his miracles which our fathers told us about, saying, did not the Lord bring us up from Egypt? And now the Lord has forsaken us and delivered us into the hands of the Midianites. Then the Lord turned to him and said, Go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites. Have I not sent you?" So he said to him, "O my Lord, how can I save Israel? Indeed, my clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." And the Lord said to him, "Surely I will be with you, and you shall defeat the Midianites as one man." Gideon's immediate response was doubt. He doubted God, and then he doubted himself. He was insecure, and he was afraid. But God reassured Gideon and slowly built his faith back. Gideon ended up listening to God and being faithful to him. The first thing he did was tear down his father's altar to Baal, and then he used an army of 300 men to defeat the Midianites and free Israel. Gideon felt unqualified, but God called him anyways. From Gideon, we learn that faithfulness is trusting in God's strengths over our own. In our own lives, we feel average sometimes. We feel overlooked. We feel insecure. But God uses ordinary people and hurting people in extraordinary ways. Lastly, I want us to look in 1 Samuel at the story of Hannah. Hannah was married, and her husband had another wife as well. Hannah was unable to bear children, but the other wife had plenty of children. She mocked Hannah and made her feel unseen. Hannah was hurting, and she was misunderstood. She decided to pray to God silently. God heard her prayer and answered in his timing. The way he answered was giving her a son named Samuel. Samuel was the prophet who anointed Saul and David as kings of Israel. From a singular prayer of faith through her hardship came Samuel. We clearly see God hears our prayers even when no one else notices the hardships in our lives. Hannah shows faithfulness means bringing our pain to God even when we don't feel like it. Sometimes we feel misunderstood or alone, but we need to continue to be faithful by bringing everything that we have to God. Psalm 34:19, the first verse that I read, is not just a theory. It's something that's lived out every day. Elijah, Gideon, and Hannah all faced different struggles, but all of them remained faithful. Elijah rested instead of quitting. Gideon stopped comparing himself to others and trusted in the strength of God over his own. And Hannah kept praying, even when it was quiet. Lastly, I'm going to read something to you all that some of you probably have heard, but I think it is important. Noah got drunk. Jonah ran away. Moses stuttered. Abraham was old. Lazarus was dead. Peter had a temper. Zacchaeus was short. David had an affair. Martha was nervous. Paul was a murderer. Jacob was a cheater. Sarah was impatient. Elijah was depressed. Thomas was a doubter. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. All of these people had problems in their lives. Hard things happened to them. Hard things came from them. They sinned, they all made mistakes. But none of them are remembered for their sins. They're remembered for their faithfulness. This list said Moses stuttered. When I think of Moses, my first thought is never, oh, Moses stuttered. My first thought is, Moses was faithful and delivered the Israelites out of Egypt. What is important about all of these names that I read is that their faithfulness outshone the hardships in their lives. Lastly, I want to leave you with a thought. God doesn't promise an easy life, but he promises to be faithful in hard lives.